What does it take to build a future-proof dairy business? In part 2 of this conversation with Manuel Soares of Milc Group, we dive into the mindset and mission behind one of dairy's fastest-growing tech companies. From creating a culture of trust and accountability to solving the biggest bottlenecks on the farm, Manuel shares the leadership principles and innovation shaping the next generation of dairy decision-making. If you haven't checked out part 1 of this conversation, take a little time to do so to learn more about Manuel's past, growing up on the dairy, and how that shaped Milc Group into what it is today. That and more right here today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Milc Group. Milc Group is a dairy software company that brings real-time actionable data to dairy farms around the world. They are dedicated to revolutionizing the dairy industry with their user-friendly cloud-based software. One by Milc Group is the all-in-one app that brings together all important aspects of your dairy in one place. With products such as feed and animal management software, people training, dairy facility monitoring, and scale management, Milc Group is committed to providing producers with the tools they need to succeed.
I think one talent that I do have is being able to pick good people. I've got an amazing group of people that work at Milc Group, and I always say that it starts with a fantastic human being. If they're not a great human, I don't really care about their talents. There's 3 virtues that I look at and say they've got to meet this to join the team.
What are those 3 virtues?
Character. You don't lie, steal, cheat to anyone, including our own staff, but for sure never our customer, right? Brutally honest on if we're failing, we're failing. You tell them, right? And that character is as important as the products, right? Because it's the face. It is what they see in us, right? Passion. You got to get up every day, and it has to be driven by passion for the industry, for our food supply, for the customers, for the cow. It's really got to be driven. Even I interview every single person who works for us. Mm-hmm. Nobody passes without me. And then third is the faith. And I don't demand that they believe the way I believe, but they have to have faith that there's a higher calling that we live by. It has to be your rudder. That guarantees that your character is where it needs to be. And passion for the industry, you can't get out of bed every day to do something you hate. Character, passion, and faith.
Wow. So for you, Manuel, when did you become so strong in your faith? Was there something that really just kind of triggered that in your story?
I think God's always meant a lot. I've always felt Him moving me. God's been a big part of my life and my family's life, and it always has been.
It's pretty rare in the business world today that people talk about that.
I'm not shy about it at all. Yeah.
And but that's one of the assets that draws people to your team and also draws your customers into you too.
Yeah.
Not because you say it.
No.
But because you are founded in it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Who was your first hire?
So I started off with 2 individuals who are no longer with the company. So Bruce Vanity, who is a veterinarian, he was an advisor for me at Valley Ag. And the concept or the idea was we had no products. We had to build them all. So we were going to do some consulting work as a revenue generator, right, to try to do that. And so Bruce was on for a couple of years. We could never get that really started, and not Bruce's fault. It was just that so much of the industry, they give it away. And he's a very talented guy, a veterinarian, and does some consulting, I think, even to this day. But it's just too hard of a market to play in. And then the CTO that was with me at Valley Ag Software started with us. But outside of that, one of the guys that work on the team today is Jim Amos, who is He came on board at Valley Egg when we were writing FeedWatch or create FeedWatch, and brilliant mind. He is our VP of technology.
And you built a pretty incredible team and
Yeah.
brought in some young energy too.
Yeah. I there was one thing that was really important to me is that I want to make sure that the company stays young enough so that we don't get too comfortable in our ideas. Because it's one thing to build and create, it's another to recreate. And you've got to recreate. I don't care if it's a dairy business, I don't care, necessarily what it is. You have to constantly be willing to gamble your future. It's that entrepreneurial spirit that creates a good business. I say this to my team all the time, and I'm not sure it gives them any comfort, but I'm not committed to any of our products if they're failing the customer. I'll throw it away and rewrite it if what we are doing isn't really helping our customer. We don't build to sell, we build to solve.
So, when you talk about the models of companies that you look at and look toward, have you ever looked at one or two in particular and said, that's our model?
No, I think it's pieces of,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you look at Apple, for example, and there's how Steve Jobs was driven almost, in a negative way, but really driven, are important aspects of things that I try to drive within our company. I think there's the way that some companies reinvent themselves, right? They're not afraid to brand change a bit or to think about their products differently. I mean, the dairy industry is weird in that it hasn't really changed much. And yes, there may be some robots thrown in, and yes, we have some wearables, but in the grand scheme of it, we're still doing the same thing that we've always done. And I think it's time to really look at it from a different perspective. The only way we can do that is with a full picture of data, right? So that's really what we're trying to do, is build this. I often say ERP, and I don't think most people really understand what that is. It's an enterprise resource planning so that you can look at the whole business as a whole. And when you have a problem, you should be able to look through for the cause. Our product is one, O-N-E. It's one product with all these modules, or these, what I would almost call features, but we call them modules. So we have feed management, animal, which is herd management, facility, tracking all the sensors in the barn to make sure things are operating correctly and quickly. And we'll have an HR module, all that. But this is all about looking at the whole picture in one view, right? Matt, we were having this discussion about what we're going to build, and Matt goes, it'd be really nice if they could just pick up their phone and know, this is what it's costing me to produce every day. This is my margin. And I think we'll be there in about 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mark your words today.
We're working really hard to get to the answer of, what is each animal profiting you or costing you? When is she a liability? When is she an asset? And I can choose, hey, I want to continue to invest in her, but at least I know where I stand.
And you know what debt she owes you, right? And so that's really that empowerment for the individual cow level. But we talk about measuring milk production and profitability and productive life, but you're talking about a lifetime profitability, real-time measure.
Yes, and as real time as possible, because you have to make, today, if you just look at the past and you look forward, I want to say in 1980, we sold my grandfather's dairy, right? Sold the cows. I want to say we were getting $13 milk or $12.50 milk, right? And we see $12.50, $13 in the last 5-10 years, right? So how can you make these advancements in dairy where I can make decisions quicker? Because I've got to protect the bottom end, but I've got to know where I am all the time. And I can't afford to bring a bunch of people in and crunch numbers when I need the answer, because it's probably too late, right? I may want to risk manage today, and I need to know, am I locking in a profit or am I locking in a loss, right? So if I'm going to risk on both feed and milk, I really need to know. We'll have logistics. We'll have even a way to post jobs and get people hired. Fleet managing, right? Where are my planters and my discs and who's driving what? And are they driving it efficiently? All those things are coming. And it's all in one package. A lot of it we're building ourselves because we also have to understand the model, right? Where in dairy industry today, Excel has created a lot of problems in that you get people who are not data scientists. And it's not necessarily even that. They just don't understand how Dairy Comp was built or how Easy Feed was built. And they're bringing it in and they think that the answer is correct. And it may not be, right? So what we're trying to do is make sure that the data that we create not only is live and connected at the moment it's made, rather than I write it down on a piece of paper, gets entered in at the office.
And when you talked about like this again, like what you are creating and this 2-year timeline that you've now given yourself, right? Like what must happen in order for that to be reality? And not just for Milc Group, but really for an industry.
So the other two big areas that help us answer the question is HR, so it's time and attendance, managing people. If you are managing the clocking in, clocking out of an employee, and you can connect that to the tasks that they did, we not only get that information in the same app they're already using, but we can start to look at efficiencies of labor. Do I have enough people? Do I have too many people? And then the farm side, right? That's the last piece because we have feed management, but we don't really know what's to be farmed. And farm could come to the dairy, or farm could be also growing crops, like maybe you have trees and almonds, right? Or maybe you sell something to other industries, right? And some of it comes to dairy, some does not. And that's a strategy or a tactic that a farmer would take on depending on what they grow. So those incomes or those costs have to come in to really give the full picture.
Okay, so this is where you're accounting for more than just the dairy enterprise and the overall profitability of the farm as a system based on individual production units.
Yes, because the dairy has many entities, business units. You have farm entity, you may have, a heifer raising entity, you might have the dairy, you might have, trees or something else. And all of them, you have to understand where all of them fit. And are we subsidizing one over the other or not? It's okay. You just need to know. And that all comes in to give you the final number.
And so what's in the way? What do you have to overcome in the next 2 years to get where you want to be?
Well, we really need the support of the dairy industry, obviously, because their feedback drives what we do. It's all about, really listening to the dairy producer. What is it that you want to know? How do you want to know it? We really spend a lot of time making it easy, because if it's difficult, then it's really hard to use, right? It's like BlackBerry and iPhone. BlackBerry was complicated but very powerful, but it doesn't need to be. You got an iPhone that's just as powerful, but it's easy. And we are the iPhone in comparison to that model.
So easy to use.
It's got to be easy to use.
Yeah. Again, goes back to solving problems, right? Which has been one of the guiding principles that has really directed you through doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I learned a lot of lessons, right? There's different ways to develop products. In my past, I have made mistakes in that, one, my arrogance thought I knew what they wanted, or it's in its own room, right? Of everybody at one company saying, yes, this is what they want, and never listening or never going and talking to them. So our sales team is a huge input, right? They're saying, hey, they really need this, they really need that. Hey, what about that kind of change to what we're doing? I used to build where I'm putting everything in it we think they want, And then here, look what we built you. And they go, well, half of this stuff I don't care about, right? Now we only build what they want. So I'm not spending money building things that they don't want. Plus, it's not getting convoluted.
So at this point in time, 8 years in to Milc Group, what do you think are a couple of the biggest wins?
Personally, my win is, my team, for sure. Regardless if you're making milk, making car parts, or building technology, you focus on the people, you focus on everything else second, because with good people, good things happen, right? So I'm most proud of that, I think. Feed has been, we took a strategic approach, right? So when we started this company, the first thing I said is we're not building herd management yet. Why would they, if they have herd management, why would they come to us for herd management if it's just another herd management? So I really wanted to take and look at the dairy in a way that we can solve some problems. So one of the first things we did was we wrote our own feed management system. And so we focused on feed, and then we focused on something that is a huge impact to dairies, and that's mastitis. And so we developed our own pulsation sensor so that we can monitor the pulsation in the vacuum to keep cows healthy. The third thing we did was we built TrainTrack, which is an e-learning platform, because primarily is we use it to train our customers on our software, but it's also a way to help train the industry to have a better workforce, right? To not just understand what the procedure is on the dairy, but the why, which also makes us better stewards of the cows, which then makes the public happier.
So Manuel, something I've been thinking about lately is, like I love focusing on the wins, right? Like I'm like positive, let's, talk about the wins. But something hit me the other day is there are very few wins that I've ever really, really learned something from. And I thought, we should really celebrate our L's, because the L's are the things that really teach us and change us and shift our mindsets and trajectories. Do you get any big L's that you can share?
Yeah. In developing Easy Feed and Feed Watch and just listening to the market, a lot of them said, look, we want an inexpensive way to have an app that does all the calculations and shows it to me, and I don't want it to be expensive, and it doesn't need to connect to anything. I just want it in an app. So that was our first version of Feed. It was disconnected from the mixer, and it was just a app that did all the calculate. You could put in all your ingredients, your recipes, and your loads, and all of that, everything that the feed programs do today, but it's not connected to the mixer. Nobody wanted it. Everybody said they did, or at least a lot of the people we talked to, even leading up to the completing of it. Now, we needed that step anyway, so it wasn't a complete loss. Ended up just building the rest of it, but it's like, okay, we built this, and you do some specific development to be able to be autonomous on a phone, right? It was still through the cloud, but I mean, you still have to manage the loading process without the scale telling you what it is, right? So you got to kind of write differently. But so it was a little bit of okay, that's really not what they wanted. Right? Maybe we didn't listen very well. Failing is part of life. It's part of business. And if you're afraid, then you'll never create. You'll never do. You'll be too paralyzed by trying to be, 100%. So, I've got a rule, 60% sure, go. Just fail fast.
That 60% rule is interesting. Because at 60%, you've got enough to take and run, but you're not so far along that you can't pivot, adapt, and tweak, right? Is that what the 60% is for you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about failing fast, but not afraid to fail. I'm not going to go in and do research for the next year to decide whether something is a good idea or not. I literally make decisions, $1 million decisions in 15 minutes, right? A lot of it has to do with I'm connected to my team. I'm connected to the process. I try to stay very connected to dairy producers. And some things I just have to have enough data. And sometimes I just need to have enough gut. As soon as we're happy where we're at in business, you're failing. There was a I think it was a YouTube video that I saw. This guy is talking to an audience, and he basically says, in business, if you're not growing, you're dying. There is no plateau, because the plateau in business is death. You're not improving, you're losing, right? And these things are hard for dairy producers to sometimes get their head wrapped around, because, hey, I finally got our repro right where we wanted it. No, it's got to continue to improve, right? We always have to look at improvements.
Yeah, always moving that mark a
The
little bit
goalpost
forward,
for
right?
Milc Group changes every day.
Yeah.
We hit, we go. We hit, we go. Yeah.
So, okay, so as you talk about your mindset as a leader of the company, things that I'm picking up from you, you talked about the, fail fast and not to focus on the failure, right? Like kind of keep moving forward.
I never
like get to that
never
60%.
do that, right? I mean, I've had you know, someone who does all our buying for us buy something, too many of something or too much, and come back to me, I think expecting for me to yell at them, and it's like, okay, just don't repeat it. Because if you hammer them on their failure, they'll never fail, but you'll never grow. And it's really hard to do. Yet there's a couple things that are really hard for business owners to do. Empower, because it's scary. You're letting somebody else make a decision. And not ream them for something that they did wrong, right? You have to understand that you've trained this person. First, you've hired, right? Then you've trained them. Then you've empowered them, and then you make sure they're accountable. And if you do those four things, then give them the respect of doing exactly what you asked for. Go rock. Let's make sure you're doing it. If you need help, I'll get it out of your way. If there's something in your way, or you need somebody to bounce it off, and you always have to say, look, if you're outside of this rail, come and talk to me. But outside of that, go.
So it's freedom.
You got to have freedom.
Yeah. Trust first, and then the freedom.
It's really about respect.
Any other big lessons that you've picked up on over the years as a leader, that if someone were to come to you, like, and let me put it in this lens. So you are an entrepreneur. You've started this business, you're growing this business. The dairy producers that you serve are also entrepreneurs. If a dairy producer came to you and said, Manuel, what's the best advice you can give me as a young person coming into leadership and management? Is there anything else that you would share with them besides what you've already shared?
If it's a dairy producer who's in business today, maybe taking over for their family, their father is retiring or whatever, and they're coming in, or they're starting from scratch, it's a little bit of a different approach for each. I would say go through and get to know every single person who works for you, or hire excellent human beings. And what I mean by that is they may not be as skilled, but they're good humans. If their rudder is right, then they'll have the character necessary to grow, right? Obviously, intelligence are part of that. All, being a good human, you also need to have the ability to learn. You got to have drive, passion, all those things. I think, I would say first focus on a good human being. We'll take someone who will apply, put in a resume. Depending on who they work with, they'll go through the first interview. Then they come to me. Then I bring them to San Luis Obispo so they can meet as much of the team as possible. So they're interviewing us as well. Are these people that I would really like to work with? And you get this more of a personal approach, and then we hire from that. So it's a process, and it's not fast. It can be frustrating for some who are in need, but I don't want to rush it because it's so important to have the right team. It's hard to find good people.
For you, what is a red flag during the interview process?
So I always say in conversation, we don't ask these in interviews. It's funny because you get taught what questions to ask, right? And most of them are ridiculous. So what we try to do is have the person relax, have laughter, because it reduces the tension and they become more themselves. one big red flag, and it's happened a handful of times, especially when I'm hiring developers. I've had a software developer that applied. I've been trying to hire more in recently, and you ask them the question about agriculture, and one actually made the comment that he didn't believe that animal agriculture was needed anymore. Red flag. Right? I mean, interview was over, right? It's like, okay. So the thing that you'll find, and the engineers, there's quite a few supporting staff that really didn't grow up on a dairy, don't really understand dairy, but every single one of them on their own, not prompted, said, I think it's really cool to work with a company that's going to feed the world. To some, not exactly that, but it always kind of this, but this is a job that I think I could really, get into to try to help safer food or whatever, right? So those things, those are green flags to me. I don't put up with what I call company snipers, that sit in the dark and talk about people or shoot, people in the dark. I'll eliminate them quickly. I don't put up with that at all, because we have to have an environment that's very safe. You have to be able to debate with me, debate with each other, and still laugh and smile and have a good time. Right. And if you can't do that, then it's that fire fast thing, right? Because it's a cancer.
Yeah. So now 8 years in the Milc Group, did you ever take the time to just stop for 1 second and look at what 8 years has built?
There's been, these epiphanies or these things where something happens. I had some health issues recently, and things just went on. They carried on, right? It was like nothing stopped because Manuel was not here. They picked up the ball. And those are the things that tell me that what I'm doing is right. And I think, look, I fail, I make mistakes. I know my team does. I know the company will. We're not perfect, but we try to be at least honest, right? Honest with each other, honest with our clients, and just work our butts off. And I think it's, there's times where I've sat in a meeting, and recently we had someone was really upset for the right reasons because it was over a customer. We had failed a customer. That person was really upset that we failed a customer and was trying to tell the whole company, we cannot accept this. Why did it take us so long to fix it or figure it out? And all I was trying to do was point out that it was a problem, not a company-wide problem, but I let her express it. And it was awesome because you had, I could see the whole audience going, or the team going, he's not upset. He's actually listening. He's not firing back, right? It's not an insult. It takes a lot to offend me. And as long as you're, with love and respect, I'm not going to get offended. So I want you to tell me what you think.
So when you look at your team and then you look at the dairies that you serve, are you prompted to say, okay, we want to create a culture internally that we can also help farms build themselves?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Especially when we're starting to work with the next generation, right? My tenure at Belly Ag, a lot of the people that I had the relationship with are retiring. It's their kids are starting to come into play and have more say. And the interactions that our company has with them is really important. It's kind of a retention of the old, right? When I shake your hand and tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. We're very honest about taking on our failures and owning them and making sure that we adjust for them and correct them. I think the way that the team feels confident in the conversation and knows that it takes humility to do that keeps us humble with our customers. The truth is, the dairy is only as good as its people, just like the products is only as good as its people. And if you really focus on really good humans and give them the power to make good decisions that you've taught them and make them accountable, I think that's one key. Another key is time is your enemy. If you look at all businesses, whether you're producing milk or not, time is the clock. It is the thing that kills businesses. And if you don't speed up your processes, you will be left behind. Whether it be, I want to get to 100-pound average, get there as soon as you can, and find the direct path to get there. Make sure your team knows what you want done to get there. What is the tactics you're going to take to get there? You have to have the vision and the strategy, but make sure they're geared up to go and apply it, right? So if you look at your team, you look at, not afraid to fail, right? Go out 60%. And if you say, look, everything is urgent and let's move quickly, you'll be successful because you'll have the team behind you. You'll go really fast and you're not afraid.
So that's the plan for Milc Group.
That is Milc Group.
Well, those are some good parting words. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You just heard from Manuel Soares of Milc Group. His story is a reminder that great businesses and great dairy operations are built on great people, big vision, and bold faith. Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. Don't forget to follow, rate, and share wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and until next time, keep on growing, keep on learning, and up-leveling your dairy. This episode is brought to you by Milc Group. Milc Group is a dairy software company that brings real-time actionable data to dairy farms around the world. They are dedicated to revolutionizing the dairy industry with their user-friendly cloud-based software. One by Milc Group is the all-in-one app that brings together all important aspects of your dairy in one place. With products such as feed and animal management software, people training, dairy facility monitoring, and scale management, Milc Group is committed to providing producers with the tools they need to succeed.